Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Antya lila, chapter 5, text 131, translation. If you want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, you must approach a self-realized Vaishnava and hear from him. You can do this when you have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. Herein, Swarup Damodar Goswami instructs the poet from Bengal to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava and learn from him. In India especially, there is now a class of professional Bhagavatam readers whose means of livelihood is to go from village to village, town to town, reading Bhagavatam and collecting dakshin or rewards in the form of money or goods like umbrellas, cloth and fruit. Thus, there is now a system of Bhagavata business with recitations called Bhagavata Saptaha that continue for 1 week, although this is not mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam. Nowhere does Srimad Bhagavatam say that the Bhagavatam should be heard for 1 week from professionals. Rather, Srimad Bhagavatam 1-17 says, Shrinvatam Swadgata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. One should regularly hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized Vaishnava. By such hearing, one becomes pious. Hridyantasto Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhritsatam. As one thus hears the Bhagavatam regularly and sincerely, his heart is purified of all material contamination. Nashta Praishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regularly hearing the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Bhagavatam 1-18. This is the proper process, but people are accustomed to being misled by professional Bhagavatam reciters. Therefore, Swarup Damodar Goswami herein advises that one should not hear Srimad Bhagavatam from professional reciters. Instead, one must hear and learn the Bhagavatam from a self-realized Vaishnava. Sometimes it is seen that when a Mayavadi sannyasi reads the Bhagavatam, flocks of men go to hear a jugglery of words that cannot awaken their dormant love for Krishna. Sometimes people go to see professional dramas and offer food and money to the players, who are expert at collecting these offerings very nicely. The result is that the members of the audience remain in the same position of Grihamanta Kupam, family affection, and do not awaken their love for Krishna. In the Bhagavatam 7.5.30, it is said, Matirna Krishne Parata Svatova Mito Bipadyeta Grihavratanam. The Grihavratas, those who are determined to continue following the materialistic way of life, will never awaken their dormant love of Krishna, for they hear the Bhagavatam only to solidify their position in household life and to be happy in family affairs and sex. Condemning this process of hearing the Bhagavatam from professionals, Swarup Damodar Goswami says, Yaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavera Sthane. To understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, you must approach a self-realized Vaishnava. One should rigidly avoid hearing the Bhagavatam from a Mayavadi or other non-devotee who simply performs a grammatical jugglery of words to twist some meaning from the text, collect money from the innocent public, and thus keep people in darkness. Swarup Damodar Goswami strictly prohibits the behavior of the materialistic so-called hearers of Srimad Bhagavatam. Instead of awakening real love for Krishna, such hearers of the Bhagavatam become more and more attached to household affairs and sex life. Yan maitunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham. One should hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a person who has no connection with material activities, or, in other words, from a Paramahamsa Vaishnava, one who has achieved the highest stage of sannyas. This, of course, is not possible unless one takes shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srimad Bhagavatam is understandable only for one who can follow in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yaha Bhagavata Pada Vaishnavira Stane Ekanta Ashrayakara Caitanya Charane. If you want to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, you must approach a self-realized Vaishnava and hear from him. You can do this when you have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we go back a little bit to verse 1 to 7. There's few points mentioned in the verse. Again, the distinction is being made between the Supreme Lord and the conditioned souls. And it is mentioned that the Lord has many energies, many potencies. Two are mentioned in that verse. And it is said, Parasya Shakti Vividaya Vashruyate. The Lord has many, many energies, and the main energies are Sandhini, Hladini, and Samvit. And in comparison to the Lord, the conditioned soul is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life, which are... What are the threefold miseries of life?
Misery arising from the mind and the body. Misery arising from other living entities, and miseries arising from natural disturbance.
And in Sanskrit? Adi?
Adhyatmika, Adipraktika, Aditaivika.
Daivika Klesha, yes. These are threefold miseries of life. And then the last sentence says that the conditioned soul is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations. So sometimes devotees write me and say, I am a mess. So this like a different way to say I'm a mess. I'm a complete mess. And if you say I'm a mess, actually you increase the misery. And you know when people ask you, how are you doing? And you may say I'm a mess, and you may say surviving, I'm surviving. Or you may say, oh, I feel great. I'm really well and very grateful. But we like to lament, and if somebody asks us, how are you doing? It's an opportunity to lament. So you can say, well, my back hurts and my mind is disturbed, and I have been mistreated, and people don't understand me. So many things we can say. But if you say something positive or spiritual, then actually this affects your whole state of being, and you can even feel better if you say, I'm great. And the best is to say, I'm grateful. Not grateful, grateful. Actually, both may be true. I'm grateful, but I'm grateful. although I'm so grateful to the Lord that He's tolerating me in His movement and still engaging me in devotional service. So, what can you say? You can say, I'm a treasure house of all kinds of problems, if somebody asks you. I mean, you can say it half jokingly. But what can you say? What would you like to say when people ask you, how are you? I mean, how are you is just like a common question, and it doesn't mean very much, and both the question and answer are not very deep. But if you want to make the whole exchange a little deeper, then when somebody asks you, how are you? Then you can say, do you really want to know? It will take time to describe. or you can take an opportunity to actually Jai, Hare Krishna. You can take an opportunity to actually feel better in that very moment by saying I feel great and I feel grateful. We have a situation here where devotees were first impressed by the poet, but when they understood that he has wrongly described Lord Jagannath and Lord Chaitanya, they were struck with wonder. And sometimes when we realize that we are an illusion and that we are mistaken about something, then we become struck with wonder. And that's good, to become awakened. And what happened to the poet? He became ashamed, and he became like a duck in a society of white swans. Sometimes we feel like this in the society of devotees. We feel like a duck or a black sheep, something similar. And he was speechless after he heard this. He was speechless, he was embarrassed that he was wrong in his explanation. But Swarup Damodar Goswami, he actually took pity on him. It says he is naturally very kind-hearted, sadaya hridaya, very kind-hearted. And then he told him that, you see, you have made a mistake, but you can derive some benefit from this mistake. And you can learn something, and you can learn how to do something properly. When you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to learn how to do something properly. So every problem is an opportunity. And Swarup Damodar said that he should learn from a self-realized Vaishnava, hear from him, approach him humbly. But it's very important to sincerely take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then the next verse, 132, which we haven't read, he said also, associate regularly with the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for then only will you understand the waves of the ocean of devotional service. So the previous verse says that you have to completely take shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and here it is said that one should regularly associate with devotees. So the pathway to the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the association with his devotees. There is a verse in the Caitanya Caritamrita. It says, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Swayam Bhagavan, Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Bhaktagana Pran. All glories to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Bhagavan, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who is the life and soul of his devotees. So if we want to approach Krishna or Lord Chaitanya, we have to actually do this through devotees, through the association of devotees. One of these. Not the current also, the cushion. Thank you. In the purport to the verse, Srila Prabhupada describes professional reciters of the Bhagavatam making business of this. We can say also that today one very good business is guru business, to be a guru. Because as a guru you get fame, you get money, you get followers. And if you're a bogus guru, you also get simple sense gratification. And Srila Prabhupada was very critical of anyone who is bogus, and he was clearly describing how to understand who is genuine and who is bogus. And it says here to approach the Vaishnava who is self-realized. So we have had that fortune to actually get in contact with Srila Prabhupada and the movement he created. And he is that self-realized Vaishnava. And his bona fide followers are also Vaishnavas that we approach for guidance. And when you read, you may naturally ask, who is this? Acharyas are not present here physically, but Srila Prabhupada is still present through his Vani or instructions, and we can associate with him through his instructions. Now, what can make it interesting for us to read Srila Prabhupada's books? What do you think? How do you approach Srila Prabhupada's books in such a way that it's interesting for you to read them? Yeah?
Reading them regularly.
Okay.
Regularly they become more interesting.
Hearing about them, like hearing from other devotees about certain Prabhupada books that may seem.
Hearing about
Prabhupada books that.
From whom?
From other devotees who have read them.
Who have read them.
Yeah.
So getting inspired by others' experience of reading.
Reading them and doing what they say. Realizations.
Reading them with intention to apply them in everyday life and to realize what is said there. I remember there is Prabhu, probably some of you know him. His name is Dina Dayatma or Dina Dayatma. He lives near the manor. He is Prabhupada disciple, senior. He gives also Bhagavatam classes, long classes, but many devotees attend. And he's so fired up about preaching, and he knows so much. I mean, he knows the Bhagavatam, he knows Krishna book. He speaks about Krishna's pastimes, and very nicely talks the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And I asked him, how shall I read Prabhupada's books after one class? And he said, when you read, think about what you read. Don't just read it. You read the 10 pages and you say to your, a fellow Prabhu, I read 10 pages, And he said, oh, you're great. You read 10 pages, that's amazing. Every day I read 10 pages. But imagine if you would think about what you read, think deeply, think how to apply it, think how it changes your life, how it changes your heart, then in this way you have more benefit from reading. So imagine if you would read books with the spirit of discovery. Let me discover something that is really amazing, really fascinating, really useful, beneficial for myself, for my devotees, my friends, and we can share. And everybody has his favorite quotes, everybody has his favorite verses. So if you are attracted to a verse or a purport or a passage, then you can read it again and again, you can discuss it with other devotees, you can share with others, preach, and of course apply it. And in this way it becomes very interesting. So association with a pure devotee through his instructions is very powerful. We neglect the mercy of the Lord in the form of knowledge. people sometimes say, oh, that's just dry philosophy. But actually, Shastra is full of emotion, or descriptions of emotion also. How many of you have cried when you read Prabhupada's books? That's amazing. Why did you cry? Do you remember?
It's very, you realize a lot of things that were there all the time, but you just don't see them because you're not aware.
So Prabhupada's books help you become aware of certain things.
The things that was always there, but you're now, awareness is on to a new level.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Crying? Huh? Realization. So if this philosophy is dry, then how come you have cried? Or maybe, has any one of you laughed when you read Prabhupada's books? Sometimes Srila Prabhupada is describing something so seriously, but at the same time it's so funny. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada is so sharp. So I admire you for being so bold and staying here and listening to all the sharp words from the scriptures. I had people before, when I started preaching, in my classes, go out. They couldn't stand it. Some people cried also. They felt so disturbed and so hurt. So one symptom of courage is to be able to hear the truth, although it's unpalatable, although it's heavy. And when we first heard Srila Prabhupada's sharp words that that people are like dogs, cats, camels, asses, hogs, and all kinds of zoo inhabitants, we thought, is this really true? Why he is so heavy? Then also he uses another animal called ass very often. Mudha means ass. So he describes scientists as asses. He describes materialistic persons as asses. He describes all kinds of people who are in illusion as asses. There was one gentleman who wanted to have a Sanskrit name. Thank you. You can put it here. And because he was very funny and very conditioned and very materialistic, thank you very much for the water. Devotees gave him a name, Mudha Godasa. So he was going around very proud that I have a Sanskrit name. What is your Sanskrit name? Mudha Godasa. So Mudha means ass, and Godasa means servant of the senses. But at least it was Sanskrit name. So, so why are acharyas so heavy? That sometimes we want to leave. Why they use these sharp words? It is described in the book called Babaji Maharaj, which is the book about Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Caritamrita Prabhu compiled it or wrote it or prepared it, presented. And it is described that, there are stories where people would come to him and say they want blessings. Then he would preach to them very strongly. Even he would preach to husband and wife to be very strict in their spiritual practice. and he would chastise the husband why he is enjoying the cooking of his wife. He was asking what you were doing, and then he said, we had a dinner together. And he said, you see, you're enjoying the nice cooking, you're attached to the nice cooking of your wife. Oh, Krishna. There's some people asking for blessings, then he gives them some very heavy instructions, and when they come back, he asks them, have you followed this? And so blessing. Where is the blessings? Sometimes Indian boys write me and say, Prabhuji, can you give me some blessings? And I say, blessings is in the instructions. If you follow the instructions, you get so many blessings. So it is described that the word sadhu means to cut. So the acharyas use these heavy words to cut the attachment to matter, to the material world, to the material relationships. And it is said that the conditioned soul is chastised again and again by his family members, and he never leaves them. And when the sadhu chastising him once, he wants to run away and never come back. And he says, this person is not spiritual because he is insulting me. But it is said that the reason why acharyas use sharp words is to cut the attachment. And some acharyas, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he uses poetry, he uses metaphors, he's always criticizing himself, taking the role of a conditioned soul. So this is also a way to preach, and some people may be inspired by that. But sometimes we need to hear the truth to our face and get awakened from our dream that we are something special and that we are very advanced. Nowadays what is popular is self-esteem and self-confidence. And success teacher and coaches, then they want to increase in our self-esteem and self-confidence. But if you have a faith in God, you don't need self-confidence. If you have confidence in God, it includes you, because God is everything. So it includes also self-confidence. If you have self-confidence without confidence in God, you become proud and you fall down. If you have self-esteem without esteem of God, you become proud and you fall down. So this kind of self-confidence is actually false self-confidence. First of all, how can you have confidence in something that you don't know what it is? You don't know what is the self. First you have to see what is the self, then you can have self-confidence. But even when we understand that myself is the soul, spirit, even having confidence only in that spirit is not enough. Because that spirit depends on the Supreme Spirit, or God. So better have faith in God. Better have faith in God. And Niranjan Maharaj said that the best favor we can do to devotees, to care for them nicely, is to help them increase their faith. Of course, I'm not against taking care of devotees' body, mind, emotions. This is all necessary. We live in the material world. But faith, that they can increase their faith, this is the greatest gift. And how you can help them to increase their faith? You can help devotees to increase their faith by being faithful yourself, by having faith in God. So, and when this faith is tested, when you have trials and tribulations, when you are tested and you still have faith in God, and you say, this is not an accident, I'm in so much trouble, but I will not give up, and I know He's there, and I know He will help me, then this can also increase the faith of your mentees or whomever you are taking care of. Your personal example of faith. And then sometimes we tell devotees, don't worry, Krishna will help you. I have seen it in 1,000 cases, how Krishna has helped so many devotees. And at the moment, everything looks hopeless. And then, if this happens, if Krishna helps, then devotees' faith increases. So, most people's faith increases when things go nice. But actually, even if things don't go well, even if we don't get results, still we don't lose faith because we know Krishna is there. It's easy to be happy when sun is shining, but can you be happy when it's raining? Can you be happy when it's tough? Can you be grateful when it's tough? Can you have faith when it's tough? Many people, they have a tendency to abandon God when He doesn't do what they expect of Him or of life or the universe or whatever. When things there don't go their way, they give up. They know, where is God? Where is God now? When I need Him. But devotee doesn't think like this. He thinks, I'm a servant of God and I need to serve Him. He is not my servant and He is not here just to fulfill my needs. Of course, He is already fulfilling so many of my needs, but I'm not grateful. I always want more. And then when I get in trouble, my faith decreases. This is not devotion. This is not the attitude of a devotee to think like this. Sometimes people get angry at God. So I say, does it pay off that you get angry at God? How will you profit by getting angry at God? You think by getting angry you will inspire Him to help you? Yes? You want to say?
At least you've recognised God.
Huh?
At least you've recognised God.
Okay, this is a positive perception of this problem. Sometimes you are like on the edge of giving up everything. You're just so pressured, so disturbed, so desperate, and you say, what is this? So imagine if we could have an attitude of unbreakable determination that whatever happens, we will not give up. And what is our goal? What is our main verse that describes our attitude? You tell me. What verse describes the attitude of a devotee? What does it mean?
One is so one of the things Brahma-Bhuta level, and one is unflinching determination, unflinching faith, and one is endeavoring to serve the Lord.
Okay. Any other? Oh, this verse is my weakness, or one of my favorite verses. This verse, Tatenu Kampam Susamikshamenno 10.14.8, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8, is mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. Prabhupada said this verse should be the guide of all devotees. Okay, this is one of the two. Actually, you reminded me of this one also. One of the two that will describe the high-class attitude of a devotee. Okay, so which one? It's not from the Gita, it's not from the Bhagavatam. Anukuliyana Krishnanu. Where is this from? Okay, it's not from the Nectar of Devotion. I said it's not from the Bhagavatam. Huh?
From the Bible.
In the Bible, I don't know if there is a similar verse. Maybe. So, the first word starts with A.
A.
Yeah, with A. The first word of the verse.
Where is it from?
It's from it's not from all of these I mentioned. Where is it from? If I tell you where is it from, then I think you will be able to guess. Huh? You're coming closer, but it's not from Upadeshamrita. But you're coming closer to this Sangha. I mean, when are we going to develop this attitude which is described in that verse? When do we plan to develop this attitude? We have been in ISKCON for 20, 30 years, and we are still a little bit bitter, a little bit irritable. I mean, we still have a tendency to get angry at God. This is very unfortunate. So, can you guess one more?
Although it doesn't start with A, but maybe it's Yunada Pisunichana.
Oh, now we are coming really close. It's from these 8 verses. Yes. Even if you handle me roughly, you trample, you step on me, you kill me or whatever, but you always remain my worship of the Lord. So that's love. That's love. Radharani says, if my unhappiness, Murli Manohar Prabhu mentioned, if my unhappiness is Krishna's happiness, then let me be unhappy all the time. And we pray to God as if He's a supplier of our, fulfilling our needs, a supplier for our sense gratification. So how do you judge anything? Any activity, any speech? How do you judge anything? How would you judge it? How do you judge anything anyway, every day? By what? Yes, but what would that mean? What? He said Shastra Chakshu, that see through the eyes of the scriptures. But what do you see through the eyes of the scriptures? That's the question. What does it mean?
Accept favorable and reject unfavorable things.
Anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varchanam. These are first 2 items of surrender. Okay, that's very good, but it's not what I think. You have to guess what I think. Favorable, unfavorable. Yeah, this is very general, but let's get a little bit more specific about that. It leads in the good direction.
Guru Sadhu and Shastra.
Huh?
Guru Sadhu and Shastra.
Yes, but what? How do you discriminate?
Is this bringing me closer to Krishna, or is taking me away from Krishna?
Excellent. Okay, so that's, or, yes, that's one. And another one, is it sense gratification or devotional service? Very simple. Is it bringing me closer to Krishna or not? Or is it devotional service or service? So everything you do during the day is either one or the other. Nothing else exists. So you can sometimes kind of catch yourself during the day and ask, okay, is what I'm doing now sense gratification or devotional service? In this way you can assess the quality of your activities, and if it's not devotional service, you can get back on track. Put yourself back on track, or ask somebody to put you back on track. Now, regarding other people training us, devotees sometimes approach me and say, can you push me? And I say, are you sure? You want to be pushed? Because a couple of times I tried, but you objected severely to this push. Are you sure you're ready now for pushing? And sometimes, you push them, and then they object. They say, oh, now this is too heavy. So then you push yourself. Why are you asking me to push you? Now listen to this statement, please. If you need someone to push you, it might mean you're not very serious. What do you think about that? Would you agree?
No.
Okay. Anybody agrees?
If you need someone to push you.
If you need someone to push you, it might mean, I said it might mean,
Yeah, might.
it might mean you're not very serious. Why not?
Yes, exactly. No. Because you want someone to push you, that shows that you're serious.
You may ask, but do you really want? I mean, this is my experience with people. They ask to be pushed, but then they object. To me, one of the most important words in the universe is the word training. But who will train us? If we have a big ego, nobody can train us. And what is happening is that Krishna and devotees are training us for some time, then they say, now you train yourself, you know what to do. So we have to practice. Once one Maharaj was here, and he said, we don't step on each other's toes in his zone, in his area of service. And I said, what? Is this a good strategy? To not step on each other's toes? How do you do that? Is that possible? To not step on each other's toes? Is that possible in life? That means, I mean, you're like an angel, you're floating, you're flying. You're just also like a princess on a grain of what? Pea? You're very vulnerable and hypersensitive. Nobody can tell you anything, and you don't want to hurt anybody. And so, how can we get trained without some pressure, without some toughness? If you just leave it to your spontaneous desire that, let me spontaneously come to a level of chanting 16 rounds. When this will happen? It may happen never. Or anything they would. When I was starting Krishna consciousness, they throw me on the street. Nobody taught me how to distribute books. They just said, spread the message and don't speculate. Because I was thinking. I like to think and to ask questions, and they say you speculate too much. Just go on book distribution. And then, what do you get on book distribution? I mean, have you experienced your first blow on book distribution when people say no? You thought you are very charming, maybe girls liked you or something, and then even girls, they say no. So this is the first blow. And then the temple president gives a heavy class in the morning. He says, you are spaced out. What does that mean? Spaced out. You're mental. You heard about this? Nowadays, I think devotees are very nice in their behavior. They don't use these heavy words. But this was normal, that you're mental, you're spaced out, you're a space case. And if they want to tell you something more merciful, they say you're a mercy case. So, you're here just by the mercy of devotees, by the mercy of the Lord. And if the word training, I heard some preachers, I don't want to mention names, they say, training is for horses. Then why Prabhupada uses the word training like 2,000 times in the database, in his teachings? So training means how to apply knowledge in practice, and you need training. You need to learn how to do something, you have to practice. It's a nice word. What's wrong with training? Education means you learn something, training means you apply it. Training is a beautiful word. But who is going to train you? You tell me. Whom would you allow to train you, and how they will train you? Would you approach them for feedback and say, please shoot? How many of you have done that? Approach some devotee, senior or junior, and ask them, please shoot. Tell me all my wrongs. Excellent. There was one hand. I haven't done it myself, sorry. But this means we are bold if we... Actually, I have done it in two-way situation where, we tell each other. It was voluntary, let's tell each other improvement suggestions. But now, this is the point. You may say, this sandwich feedback? I will explain, no problem. Sandwich feedback, we learned in the leadership training course, ISKCON leadership training course, sandwich feedback. First say something nice, then improvement suggestions, then say something nice. And which part of the feedback was most exciting?
The middle.
In the middle is the burger. You see, even the phone agrees. The middle is the juiciest, the sweetest. So, and usually the first part is very short, the third part is very short, and the middle part is really like, oh my God, it's such a focus. Now, experts for education say for every criticism you should give 5 praises, minimum. And when I said this to I said this to husbands and wives. Anybody married here? Husbands and wives? I say, for every criticism of your wife, you have to praise her 5 times. And he says, okay, I will not criticize anymore. It's too much. I mean, 5. I mean, that's the pasya. Then I was telling Grihastas 12 hugs a day and 12 compliments a day. And they said, this is too much. This means practically every hour I have to hug my wife and I have to give a compliment. But some of them, out of joking, tried it in Spain in 2013. And they came to me and they say, this is amazing. Just jokingly we tried this, what you suggested, and our relationships was never so good as now. And so it sounds easy, it sounds funny, but actually if you do it, it has a powerful effect. So I'm not saying training means only pointing out what's wrong, what you are doing wrong. Training also means support, highlighting of people's potential, showing so much affection and love in devotees, and especially what is important, that you tell them, I believe in you. I believe in you. How many of you within the last 48 hours have told someone that you believe in them? Wow, amazing. Excellent. There was 3 hands. This also sounds simple. Somebody may think it's sentimental, but actually it's a very powerful statement and message. And I believe in you is based on spiritual perception, not on some romantic sentiment. You believe that this person has potential, Ashcharyavat. Every soul is amazing, Satchitananda, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. So you can easily say, I believe in you. I believe in you means I believe in your potential, I believe in your sincerity, and I believe in your ability. So in SEAL, U.S. Marines, they have a Hell Week. You know that? Hell Week? Okay, nobody you don't know about
No seals here.
Hell Week. So Hell Week means you go through hell. I mean, you are. It's like in the Shastra it is described. You are immersed in a cold water. You carry heavy things. You are running. You are almost going crazy. You are chastised. They want to break your ego. And sometimes in life or in spiritual life we may feel like this a little bit. But this is not the only part of training and education. Take any of these things and multiply them with 5, and you will get a complete package of training. And what is 5? 5 means positive reinforcement, unconditional or conditional positive regard, positive reinforcement, highlighting the good in people and showing that we believe in them. So, if you look how Srila Prabhupada dealt with his disciples, he did this. He did both things. He did this. He showed so much appreciation, gratitude. He was crying out of gratitude that you are helping me so much. devotees felt that he genuinely appreciates even a little service they do and that he loves them. And whom we can run to for training? The person who we are convinced they love us and they have our best interest at heart. And in this way, we can run to Srila Prabhupada and we can run to devotees who care about us genuinely and get this greatest of all gifts is the gift of training, because we will learn to be a servant and stop being an enjoyer and controller in this material world, imitating God. So thank you very much for listening. Do we have any questions? Yes?
Going back to when you said about not stepping on people's toes. It's just to get the job done. Somebody was stepping on my toes, but I prayed for that. I actually prayed for it. It happened years ago. I was in a play and I was asked to play anger. Right? But there was a problem. I couldn't get angry. I couldn't. And it was back to Mark Swami, and he noticed I couldn't get angry, which is probably why I was chosen for the part. But anyway, and he started shoving me, trying to get me angry. And it didn't happen. It just didn't happen.
He was provoking you or insulting you or something?
No, he was physically shoving me, just trying to get me angry. He was trying to disturb me, And it wasn't happening, I wasn't getting disturbed. Whatever. And then we had, the plays were happening, and the last play was in Dublin, and the plays were Krishna, please, I need to lose my temper, or one of his mind, or whatever. So Krishna made arrangements. So the stage was there, and there was a chemical. It was in a park, Green Park, and there was a chemical toilet. These portable toilets, and I'm claustrophobic. I had to, go to pass in the chemical toilets, and somebody locked me in, and I could feel this impish energy just outside. I could feel it just outside. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. And then they locked me in, and then they rocked the toilet.
Oh my God!
Right then. I lost my temper, right? And I kicked the door open, and it just flew open. I didn't break it, didn't break the lock because it was weak plastic, but I kicked it open, and I saw him, and I pointed my finger, I was going, rah, rah, rah. And then all of a sudden, I thought, save it, save the anger. And I couldn't, obviously it was Krishna was helping me, so I saved the anger. And then, 5 minutes later, I was on the stage, and I had to lose my temper. No problem. Right? And there was so much anger coming out. And one kid in the audience, he was afraid, and he hid behind his parents. But that was Krishna's arrangement. And funny enough, and my interaction with the devotee was quite interesting afterwards. I think, whatever. I knew him. I knew him quite well, And then about 10 years later, he came up to me and says, I feel really bad about what I did that 10 years ago. Right. But I said, somehow or other, it helped me in devotional service.
They intentionally wanted to help you with the play.
Sorry?
Did they intentionally wanted to help you with the play so that you could get angry in the play or not?
Oh, the person who rocked the...
No,
they didn't know.
Oh, okay.
But that was the interesting thing. I thought, that was Krishna's arrangement. How did that happen? He was, being playful and impish or whatever. But the result was I got angry and was able to get angry in the play. And that was just Krishna's arrangement. It was very unusual. But this sort of thing about stepping on people's toes.
Yeah.
Because if that hadn't happened, I would have been able to get angry. Now I can, have resentment to that person for the rest of my life if I wanted to. But the point is that was done to answer my prayer.
So at the end, you liked it, the whole experience, or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I just view it as it was, something that happened beyond my... I think it was Krishna's arrangement.
help for
Something
service.
that is so wonderful and beyond my comprehension. How did you arrange that to happen? How did that happen? You know, I still can't figure it out. So I think it's quite amazing myself.
Right.
Rather than, dwelling on, well, you love me, you love the Pope, man. But I don't do like that. It's quite an amazing, for me it's quite an amazing experience. I think it's quite humorous.
I think you are the soldier of Lord Chaitanya.
Oh,
Are you are a Sankirtan devotee?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the attitude of a soldier, of a spiritual warrior. They don't mind anything, as opposed to being a prince, like a spoiled prince. And we can always choose to be a victim or to be a hero. And hero, he likes challenges because he is not. When I'm challenged, I can see what is inside. Until there is some pressure in our lives, we live in illusion that we are a nice person. Nice guys finish last, and somebody said, but they're running in another race. I'm a nice guy, and then you can see who you really are when you are under heavy pressure. Otherwise, you may think you're nice, and others may think you're nice, and then sometimes we get shocked that this quiet devotee. Sometimes it's good, like this quiet devotee. When demons attack devotees, he just destroys them, and everybody's shocked and afraid. Oh, he can be so heavy. He has so much anger in himself, but directed towards the demons. Actually, I wrote down one thing that I forgot to mention. So, I want to underline that we can always choose to be a victim or a hero, and mainly there is these two moods in everyone. You are either a victim or a hero all the time. And one thing I wanted to say in relation to the prayer that we have every day, that we pray here for a bigger place, isn't it? Something like that. Okay? Now, what can help us to achieve this apart from the prayer? What do you think? One very magic thing which is most difficult to do. Yeah?
Yeah, along with each other. So we can
What?
getting along with each other, so the right team.
Very close, yes? Oh no, okay. Getting along, huh?
Doing it.
Doing what?
Put our knowledge into action.
Yes, but how? How can we get a new bigger place? Okay, more precise question. What will inspire Krishna to give us a bigger place?
To look after what we got at the moment.
This is happening quite well, I think. What else? This is happening. It's so nicely maintained. What else will help us to get a new place?
We preach so much that we get more devotees in.
Preach more devotees. Okay. This is number 2.
Huh?
That's number 2.
Okay.
He was close. But I need a specific, yeah? Okay. Tolerating what? I don't tolerate my mind when he starts to speak nonsense.
You mentioned loving exchanges when the interaction between devotees is really sweet.
Yes, we are close. Prabhupada said, your love for me will be shown how you cooperate. So we have this amazing example in Prachetas. When Prachetas did service together, Vishnu came and said, you can ask me for any benediction you want. So Prachetas is the example of cooperation. So getting along with each other, 6 loving exchanges, it's already happening, but it can be increased, and I believe it will inspire the Lord to say, okay, now you're working well together, I give you a bigger aquarium for all you fishes, a bigger aquarium, and bigger project, bigger challenge, bigger responsibility. but the foundation is that, as you said, getting well, at least decently, to some extent. I mean, at least level of respect, and like this. So this is something I think could help in practical way also, and inspire Krishna to. Krishna can do anything. He can come tomorrow and can say, take over the mosque in Regent Park. Mosque, because they got tired or something. I don't know, whatever. He can do it. I mean, it's not. It's a lot of concrete. I wouldn't like. I mean, you can paint it or something, but Krishna can do anything in a second. But he sees that these guys love each other. Let me give them something. And Vishnu said, "I'm so pleased with your friendly relationships." So maybe we can pray for this. Our dear Lord, please help us to have better friendly relationships, following the footsteps of Prachetas. And then, like this. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Thank you, Guru. For Guru's continuing the last day of the Gita Success course today, I think.
Oh yes, thank you. Oh yeah.
So, I'd like to have some more of his association, be tested, get feedback, and be trained. Was it 15 hugs a day or something? 12 hugs a day? Okay, so the pleasure of the Lotus, we have second scores from yesterday, and that will be distributed. 8 books with